Hi everyone. In this session, we are going to talk about the third phase of penetration testing, that is exploitation. So, in this, we are going to talk about the three different, various tools which are used for the exploitation. One is MEDUSA, Metasploit, and John the Ripper for the password cracking. So, in this exploitation, the exploitation is the process of gaining control over a target system. So not every exploit lead to total system compromise. So for example, the Oracle padding exploit can reveal information and allow us to download files but does not fully compromise the target system. So exploit is a way to bypass a security flaw or circumvent security controls. So the end goal of exploitation is to get the administrative level access to the target system or administrative level access to the computer. So, exploitation is an attempt to turn the target machine into a puppet that will execute your commands and do your bidding. So, exploitation is the process of launching and exploit on the target system. So, an exploit is the realization, actualization, or weaponization of vulnerability of on the target system. So exploits are issued or bugs in the software code that give a hacker or attacker the ability to launch or execute a payload against the target system. So a payload is a way to turn the target machine into a puppet and force it to do our will. So payload can alter the original functionality of the software and allow us to do any number of things like installing a new software or disable running services, or you can add new user or delete new user, and open the back door to the compromised system to re-enter later, and much more operations that can be done through this payload. So the wide range of activities, tools, and options for completing the exploitation process is often leads to confusion and chaos. So, when initially attempting to learn penetration testing and hacking, the lack of order and structure can create frustration and failure. So, it is not uncommon for a novice to read about a new tool or listen to a speaker talk about some advanced technique that can be used to gain access to a system and want to jump directly to the exploitation process. uh, that is really not an uncommon. So, because this course focuses on basics as a final warning, it is critical to stress the importance of completing the scanning phase, completing the reconnaissance phase, scanning phase to conducting this exploitation. Because from the scanning phase and the reconnaissance phase, you will gather more information about the target machine, and that information, from that information, when you try to review, you will get a lot of vulnerabilities. If you find any vulnerabilities, if you discover any vulnerabilities, that will help for the conducting this exploitation. So, depending on a multitude of factors, your attack vectors will vary from target to target. So, That is different operating systems, different services. So different operating systems like Kali Linux, Metasploit, Linux, Unix, Windows operating system, Mac OS, BSD OS. So different operating system, because on different target different operating systems may run, and different services means there may be some different application services, different network services, different system services, and the different processes that requires a different type of attack. So skilled attackers have to understand the nouns of each system they are attempting to exploit, because what kind of operating system they are using, is there any patches are there or not, so, and what are the different network services that are using, what are the different ports are open, what are the different ports are closed, is there any ports which are filtered or not. So this everything that as a pen tester can learn from the reconnaissance phase and the scanning phase of the penetration test. So you will need to expand your knowledge of systems and their weaknesses after gathering the information. So eventually you will progress to custom exploitation, which is the process of discovering and writing your own exploit or own exploits. So these are the basic information which are required before getting to the exploitation process. So in this course, we are going to cover the basics, right? So to do the exploitation, one of the tool which is known as Medusa tool. So to gain access to a remote system or remote target by using some remote services, as says different target systems use the different services, network services. Okay, to gain access to the remote target by using the remote services, Medusa is one of the best tool for doing this, gaining the access to the remote service. So when reviewing the output from the scanning phase, it always makes a special note of the IP addresses of your target systems, and that includes some type of remote services, remote access services, as named in the scanning phase also. One is your SSH, which is used to connect the remote desktop. Remotely you can connect to the target. For that, it uses the secure cell. Another one is telnet. For all these remote access services, it requires the IP addresses. Another one is FTP, the file transfer protocol, and PC anywhere, or virtual network computing, that is VNC, and a remote desktop protocol. So these are the remote access services. So as stated earlier, that different targets may have the different services. So suppose there are five targets. One target may open their SSH port is open, and remaining ports may be closed. And another, different targets, they may have the different ports. So you need to understand in the scanning phase that which ports are open and which ports are closed. So these are some of the popular choices, because gaining access to these services often results in the complete compromise of that target. So, upon discovery of one of these services, hackers typically run to an online password cracking. So, once you have these, you identifies in the scanning phase that these services are open, then you have the IP address of your target, and these services are running on those target machine ports. Then when you are trying to connect to the target machine using the IP address, you require a password. Suppose if you are connecting with secure cell SSH and providing the root at the target address, the username at the target IP address, it asks you the password. So what is the next step? You require a password. So how to get this password? So Medusa is one tool which try to create, the crack the password. But for the hackers or pen testers, it requires the online password cracker to crack the target machine passwords. So we will define this online password crackers as an attack technique which interacts with the live services like SSH or Telnet or FTP or remote desktop protocol. Okay, so the online password crackers work by attempting to brute force their way into a system by trying an exhaustive list of passwords and an or username combinations. That means to do that, one needs to have some set of usernames, the guessing usernames on the target machine, and the potential passwords. So, in contrast to this online password cracking, you will have the offline password cracking technique. So, these offline password cracking techniques do not require these services, these list of usernames and list of passwords. So, they do not require the service to be running. So rather than the, but in that, the passwords in offline password cracking, the passwords are not in the plain text. The passwords are, they are in the hashed values, and they are encrypted. The password files are encrypted as soon as the operating system is boots. So the password hashes can be attacked in the offline password cracking in a standalone fashion. So, when using online password crackers, the potential for the success can be greatly increased if you combine these attack with the information gathered from the Reconian's face. So that is who all are the users on the target side, that you can guess the username list, and you can find the password word list, and trying to match this now the user list with the passwords. If anything is matching, that will crack the password. So that method we call the brute force method. So as said, the specifically you should be sure to include any usernames and passwords you discovered during the Reconian's phase. So the process of online password cracking literally requires the attacking program to send a username and a password to the target every time. So if either the username or password is incorrect, the attack program will be presented with an error message and the login will fail. So again, you need to send another username and password combination on target side. So the password cracker will then send the next username and password combination. So this process continues until you will get the login success message. So this process continues until the program is either successful in finding a login and password combo, or it exhausts all the guesses, the online password. So some remote access systems employ a password throttling technique that can limit the number of unsuccessful logins you are allowed. So after n number of logins, sometimes if you are continuously trying to do this combination, there is a chance of intrusion detection system on the target side. They will block your IP address. So in this instance, either your IP address can be blocked or the username can be blocked out. So there are many different tools that can be used for this online password cracking, but there are two most popular tools. One is Medusa and another one is Hydra. So we are going to talk about the Medusa. You can practice the Hydra, which are moreover safe. both the tools. So these tools are very similar in nature, as said. So our focus will be on Medusa, but it is strongly encouraged that you become the familiar with the Hydra as well. So Medusa is described as a parallel login brute force that attempts to gain access to the remote authentication service. So it described the parallel login. So that means Medusa is capable of authenticating. Authentication means the username and password should match, and then you are allowed to, get the administrative privileges on the target system. So Medusa is like capable of authenticating with a large number of remote services. Large number of remote services, so such as your Apple filing protocol, file transfer protocol, hypertext transfer protocol, internet message access protocol IMAP, your Microsoft SQL, MySQL, NetWare core protocol, network news transfer, PC anywhere, post office protocol 3, your rexe file, RXE, R login, remote execution code, remote login, simple mail transfer protocol authentication, simple network, transfer port authentication, your SSH version 2, Telnet, VNC. So these are many remote services which included in the Medusa tool for the authenticating purpose. So, in order to use this Medusa pen tester needs to, need some several piece of information. uh, First, to run this Medusa or use this Medusa for online password cracking for remote access, first it requires the target IP addresses, first and foremost. Second, as said, from the reconnaissance phase and your scanning phase, whatever the list of usernames or a single username on the target machine that you are attempting to log in. So you need a list of usernames. And the third one is to connect, to authenticate these, to connect with the target machine with this username. You required a password. So that password, for that you are going for online password cracking. So you required a potential password list or the dictionary file which containing the multiple passwords to use when logging into the remote service. So once you have the IP address and the target system's user name and the password, then the finally on which through which service you are going to connect to the target, whether through SSH, Telnet, FTP, VNC, you need to mention the service for authentication purpose. So these four steps are most important to run this or use this Medusa tool. So one of the requirement is the most important in these four steps is guessing the password. It requires the password list. We call the dictionary file. So one of the requirement is the dictionary list. So a password dictionary is a file that contains a list of potential passwords, all the guessing passwords. So this list are often referred to as the dictionaries because they contains thousands or even millions of individual words, all the combinations. So people often use the plain English words or some small variations like, one looks like, your instead of I they may use one, instead of one they may use I, instead of five they may use the S. So these combinations, so plain English words and with small variations and the combinations of these special characters to create the passwords. So the password list, which is there in this, the potential password list, which forms this dictionary list. Okay, that password list attempt to collect as many of these words as possible, the combinational words. So a good dictionary can be extremely useful, but often requires a lot of time and attention to keep clean. So the clean dictionaries are streamlined and free of duplication. Clean dictionaries means there should not be any duplication, because if there are duplications for doing the brute force attack, it takes more time for the matching of username and password combinations. So for to get this kind of dictionary list or the password list, there are tools available that will build this clean dictionaries list or clean dictionaries. So the fine folks at Kali have already included few words, the word list to use on the Kali Linux machine. So you can find that Kali Linux on your Kali Linux. These dictionaries can be found in the user directory, where the shared directory it will contains all the possible word lists directory. So which contains one of the most notorious password lists that we call the raw queue, that is taken from an extremely large data breach. So very large data, the combinational passwords or potential password list is there in this raw queue. So there is also a small but very useful list that with the John the Ripper, which is located in the Kali Linux machine, that is the under user share directory. You will find the John directory, that password ls.lst list is there. Here the word list is there. So these two dictionaries are basically used by Medusa for doing the brute force attack for cracking the online password. Okay, but we are going to have any one of this. So once you have your password dictionary and you have a username which you collected from Reconian's face, then the pen testers needs to decide if you are going to attempt to log in as a single user, or if you want to supply a list of potential users. So that is for single users means maybe generally everybody use the root password. For potential users, that means on the target system, the user may be root, the user may be guest, the user may be in a student list or faculty list or employee list, different list of potential users. So how you're going to, as a pen tester, how you're going to log into the target one. So if your Reconian's efforts were rewarded with a list of usernames on target network, so you may want to start with those list of usernames with this password dictionary. So if you are unsuccessful in gathering usernames and passwords in Reconian's phase, you may want to focus on the results of the email addresses which you collected with the harvester tool in the Reconian's phase. So in the email addresses, you may find the combinations of the email address before at symbol, whatever the names that is given to you, you can do the combinational list of users on the target system. So the first part of an email address can often be used to generate a working domain username on the target system or target name. So, for example, just assume that during the pen test, you are unable to find any domain user names, but however, the harvester was able to dig up the email address on target system like ben.owned at example.com. Okay, so then you can use the first name ben.owned of this email address and try to build a user list with different combinations of this, that is ben.owned or own.ben, and the combination capital letter and small letter. So when using Medusa, One option is to create list of potential usernames based on these email addresses. So that is, you may find like ben dot owned or ben owned without dot, or be owned or owned db owned bin, and several other combinations that derived from this from the email address, from this email address. So after creating a list of 5 to 10 user names, so it is possible to feed this list into your Medusa and attempt to brute force your way into the remote authentication service. So that is by using the John the Ripper or the word list on Kali Linux, and by doing the combination of these email, usernames, these usernames and that dictionary is used, given as an input to the Medusa. So the Medusa are trying to attempt to brute force to get the remote authentication service like SSH or Telnet, FTP, any of the service. So now that we have a target IP addresses with some remote authentication service, because in the scan phase, by giving the IP addresses and scanning the the port scannings by using the nmap or metasploit, you can find doing the nmap scanning, you find some of the open ports, closed ports, and what are the services running on those particular ports that you can identify. And you have the password dictionary on Kali Linux and at least one username that you are having currently. So now we are ready to run the Medusa. So in order to execute the attack, we need to run this Medusa on Kali Linux by issuing this command. So by giving this command Medusa, the first keyword is used to start the brute forcing program. Start the brute forcing program for authentication purpose. So here then we are using minus H switch. This switch is used to specify the host IP address, sorry, the target IP address, a target host IP address. Then we use the minus U switch to give any single username on target machine, in a single username on target machine. Or if you give the capital U, if you use the switch minus capital U, then you need to provide the list of usernames, as we just guessed that ben dot owned or ben owned, b owned db. So that list of txt file, you share all those usernames one in the file and give the file path here by using capital U and give the list of username. Then, as said, target IP address, target username, target host username list, and target host password list. So we don't have. So we can use the password dictionary here, either John the Ripper, or we can use the password dictionary that is RockU, which is available on the Kali Linux. Then we needs to, so we have a host, a target host name, target host password, and on which remote service we need to specify the remote service, whether it is SSH, Telnet, FTP. So which remote service that you are going to use. So here you can see when we are giving the password dictionary, we use the minus capital P as a list of potential passwords. If you know the single username on target machine and single password on target machine, we use the minus U switch and minus small p switch will be used. So to authenticate the remote access system, we use the minus M switch, that is minus M for Medusa. Okay. So likewise, by giving this command on your target from your pen testing machine, it is trying to do the brute force attack, authentication attack on the remote system. So now, for example, let us say this. by executing on the target machine. So let me quickly share the screen. Uh, okay, just close this. Let me share one more machine with you. Kali Linux one. Yeah. So on the screen, you can see. Let me log into this. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I have two systems here. So let me show this system that my Kali Linux one. Suppose the IP, the IF configure of this, I'm finding that the my Kali Linux one is on the IP address 10.100.141.1, and my target, suppose target is on the IF config. So this is on the IP address 10.100.141.2. So the first step for the MEDUSA is to know the IP address of the target. So the IP address of the target is here. For giving the demonstration, I'm just using this the machine. So then to check what are the usernames and password. Okay, this happens in the reconnaissance phase. Actually, to find out the list of users in the reconnaissance phase, you will get the list of usernames. For giving the demonstration, I'm just using the usernames which are on this particular machine. So where do we find? By just giving the cat, you will find all the usernames and their related the password hashes on the system, that you will find by doing the cat etc shadow. So there it will list all the potential, the users on this particular machine. So here you can find the usernames, that one is Kali, another one is Pentest, another one is Raj, another one is Pentest, Raj 1, Raj 2. These are the usernames which are required. So, and to run this Medusa on the target system, okay, let me just run. So what we need to create, the second step is we know these IP addresses. So what is the next step? The next step is we need to know the we need to create the list of usernames. So I just created the list of usernames on the target machine side, like the list of username like root, guest, pentest, Raj, user 1, user 2, user 3. These are some combinational lists which I just use, to create this file. And then we need the dictionary, the password dictionary, okay, that you can create the password dictionary or you can use on the Kali Linux. For this demonstration, I just created a password list also, that to do the brute force attack, that password.txt. Okay, so then to run this Medusa or the brute force attack, I'll just go to the command prompt on Kali Linux and giving the command that Medusa, which is a inbuilt program. It is, so Medusa is going to run the brute force programming on the target machine. So I'm using this Medusa. So, and Medusa need to give the input to run this particular program. We needs to provide the host IP address, the target host. Our target host is running on the IP address 10.100.141.2, and the list of usernames which are guessed, which collected during the Reconians phase. For this demonstration, we just created a list of usernames and give the file path of username here. So that is the so this is at the root on this target system, at root desktop, the user list.txt. Then for on target host, the target host list of users and the password. So here you need to give the password. So that is, you find this root desktop password.txt, which we created the dictionary list or password list. Then on Medusa needs to give the service, on which service you're going to attack, because you're going to attack the SSH service. When the scanning phase done on the target machine, so in the second phase, as said, we need to scan the by using the nmap scanning. To do the scanning phase, to check it out, whether is there any what you call vulnerabilities are there or not on the target side. We just use the script command, or do the script vulnerability of your target. So our target IP address is, by just running this command, 192.168 dot, sorry, the target machine is running on 100 dot 10 dot 100 dot 101.2. And to speed up this scanning, we can give the time speed, suppose 4, and just hit enter. You try to find out, is there any vulnerabilities on the target machine or not. So it takes a while to scan all the ports, because by default the nmap is going to scan all the 1,000 common ports on the target machine. So, and finds, is there any target ports are opened or closed, and any vulnerabilities are there or not. That will be, to do this, it use this three means TCP connection establishment. So it exchange lot of packets between these Kali Linux target machine and the source machine. So after doing this, you can find that the script result here is, you're finding on the destination side, it is saying that after the null UDP of high packets, denial of service is there. All the hosts are set off. There is no vulnerability, but there is one port 22. So that port is running using the service TCP, and it is running the service SSH on target. So now for our example, this port is open, so we are going to mention this port. Okay, so we are going to mention this port as an input for this Medusa, that is an MMS service. Use the SS means authenticate for the remote access service SSH, and by hitting it, it try to do the all the brute force attack to find out the result. It do the all the brute force attack to find out the result. So start doing the brute force attack. So it is, you can see here from the host, the Kali Linux, where my operating system is running, my machine is running 10 dot 100 dot 141 dot. I'm trying to the host on the target is at 2. It is checking all the possible usernames and password, guessing, like, it is first checking for the username root and comparing all the list of passwords, the guessing whether it is matching or not, then going with the second username guest, then the third username pen test, and matching this pen test, so it is matching, so there is a success. So you are guessing the user list and the password you gained through this brute force attack. So similarly, it compared the another username Raj, and comparing all the brute force method to compare the matching the passwords. So it finds another username and password Raj here. So this is the way of, and it start doing the brute force attack for finding any other usernames or passwords. So this is the way the Medusa is used to do the brute force on way into the server. So after firing up our attack machine and opening the terminal and issuing these commands, so depending on the level of engagement and goals identified in your authorization and agreement form, you may be done with the penetration test at this point. So this way it completes the first penetration test and successfully gained access to a remote system by issuing the username and password. So you are having the IP address of the target, then you have the username and password of the target that you find here as username and password is successful here. So you identified here, okay, and then you have the service that SSH service is running. So then simply you can use the SSH service, that you are using the SSH service, okay, and you successfully identified one username and password is Raj and password is also Raj. So you use the username is Raj at the target IP address is 10.100.141.2, and when you hit it, it will ask you the password. You know the password also, which you find by running the Medusa, that is online brute force attack. By entering the password, you are logged into the Kali Linux 2. So here you can check it out. Who am I? So it will give you your running as a Raj user on the Kali Linux 2, but actually you are on Kali Linux 1. So this is the way you complete the penetration test and successfully gained access to the remote machine. So with this, I'd like to stop this session. In the next session, we'll try to discuss the Metasploit.